Welcome back, Irish fans, to Breaking Down Bray's Boys podcast. Last game preview of the regular season. Uh, normally I'd be sad about that, but this year I think we can all agree we're kind of ready for this to be over, and uh, gonna be a weird ending against, well, at least to the regular season against a team. Save the best for last, I guess. Florida State, best team in the ACC. But before we get into that, I'm going to talk about a couple things. One, the NC State game, and more so what happened after. And then two, ACC tournament seeding. I don't know how much you all care about that because let's face it, nobody's really super gassed up for a Tuesday afternoon game in the ACC tournament. I don't even know how many people would watch that, but I'll go over seeding in a minute. But first, going to go over NC State. As for the game, not much to note. Pretty similar to the way these last couple of games played out. Just insane performances from the other team. I will say I liked the post defense a lot more than I thought I would. I thought it would be similar to UNC where Durham, Laz, and Zona got beat up on the boards, and Funderburk and Bates would really take advantage of them. Didn't necessarily play out that way. They still had good games, but they didn't really bully either of them. So even when Durham was out of the game, they weren't like anything really special. So that was really kind of encouraging to see. But to do that, they had to help off the shooters, and that did not work out. Wide open looks a lot of the time. They dropped into a 2-3 for a couple possessions, and it was one of the most poorly executed 2-3s I've ever seen in my life. They're just letting guys shoot right down the middle, and Durham didn't step up. If there's one play where Bates comes and sets a screen on, I think it was Wirtz, Hub doesn't help, and then Durham doesn't step up, and the guy's got a wide open floater, or Durham stepped up late. So just really poor execution lately. What do you expect from a team that's out of it, though? It just kind of happens that way sometimes. That's college basketball, and then this season especially, just for these guys' mental health, it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world if they lost on Tuesday afternoon, so they can kind of go about their lives again, get out of that dorm room, get out of that little bubble. I'm sure they're sick of it now, especially after losing games. So hopefully these guys can get free soon before they have to go to practice in June, and hopefully they can enjoy their life for the next couple months. I don't know how much that's really possible, but hopefully that's something that's possible. But I guess going into the main thing now, the Fire Brey Chants. I'm sure if you clicked on this, that's why you're here, I guess. But I'm not a fan. I just think the players coming out and talking about it has kind of summed up my thoughts, showed the guys some respect. I wouldn't say he's put the program on the map. They've had great players like Adrian Dantley, Alfonso Ellis, who were before the Brey era, and Doherty brought in some really good players that helped Brey get to where he was. So I wouldn't say he single-handedly put the program on the map, but he's got I think a 60% career win percentage. He's made 2 Elite Eights. He's got to the second weekend a couple times, which is somewhat unheard of for Notre Dame before the past 10 years. So he's done a lot more good than he has done bad with this program, and people need to stop acting like he hasn't. We'll do a whole podcast, I'm sure, in the off season, which I'm actually looking forward to doing the podcast in the off season. Those are a bit more fun, especially when they're losing games. But I don't know. I think regardless of if you think his time has passed or whatever, or if you think he shouldn't have a job next year, I think we can all agree that he's earned the right to go out on his own terms. I don't know how you can discredit his career. Has he won a national championship? No. But has any other Notre Dame basketball coach won a national championship? I mean, we have to stop holding Mike Brey to the same level that we hold Brian Kelly to. I don't know why people all of a sudden think that Brey hasn't had a great career at Notre Dame. He's brought in some of the best players they've ever had. Jaren Grant up there, Demetrius Jackson, all these guys. Some of them, I guess, more or less fell into his lap, but he's coached great teams, and he's coached a team that at one point was the best team in the country. I don't think we can just brush over all these accomplishments. This is this is a guy that's done a whole lot for your program, and I'm just afraid that when we get a new coach, if we lose a ton in the first or second year, that this is going to happen again. Briefly, I'll say that I think you give him next year. I hope he comes back next year. I can see if he doesn't, but I don't think he's getting fired. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but I just don't see how you can fire, especially a guy like Jack Swarbrick. I don't see how he's firing his head coach of 21 years. But I don't see it. I think most Notre Dame fans can't see it, and it's just how it works in college sports. If a guy is around for this long, he has the right to go on his own terms, and it's simple as that. I don't necessarily disagree with them speaking their voice or anything like that. I just didn't love the way they went about it. If you think he should be fired, that's cool. You definitely have valid arguments behind you, but I mean, I just hate when people act like Brey hasn't done a ton in his career to warrant him going out on his own terms. Like, we can't just discredit this guy's whole career. This program was irrelevant for years before Brey came in for post-Digger. Well, not even post-Digger, like the last couple years of Digger, and then Doherty. The program was irrelevant. Brey had to go to door, and now it's kind of back to that level, but we can't forget how Brey had the program for years, and I think that's something that a lot of people are not giving him credit for. I think you give him one last shot. He recruited this team coming in next year. I don't think it'd be fair to him to fire him and not let him finish it off with his group of Hub, Laz, Goodwin, one last dance. And I think that could be a really, really interesting way to promote next season, is kind of the last dance. I'm sure Notre Dame couldn't do that because Brey's not going to admit that or anything. And maybe Hub's back, but the last dance could be a huge thing. He's recruited Wesley, JR, Atkinson. I mean, I think you give him the benefit of the doubt here after all he's done for you and give him one more year. So that's my thoughts on that. I don't think any Notre Dame fans are pushing for him to be here for 5+ years or even after next season. I think it could be time for a change there. I think Bryce Drew is a phenomenal option. Chris Quinn, Monty Williams would be awesome too. Even Ryan Humphrey, I like the idea of a lot if you're going to go in-house, but that's a discussion for another time. I hope we're not talking about that in a month or two, but it's really possible that we are. So Jake and I will definitely be on talking about that, and maybe in like a week or two, we'll be talking about Brey's job, and we'll be talking about, I guess, maybe even we'll be talking about their coaching search. So that's what I have about the fire Brey thing. Oh, and the press conference too, I guess. I didn't really buy the whole thing that, oh, he knows what's coming. Like, he sounded, if you've listened to the Cuse and Louisville or the post games, I think he sounded exactly the same. Just disappointed in his team, and them saying he deserves the chance, or him saying he deserves the chance. Like, what do you want him to say? I know the question wasn't exactly, do you feel it was deserved? He kind of brought that up on his own, but still, like, do you want him to say, oh, I'm really happy with what we've had this year? Or do you want him to say, oh, I should have perfect job security because what reason? He's realistic. He's harder on himself than maybe any of us are. So I think he's also done some really good things this year. Kentucky, I don't think they win that game without Brey dropping into the 1-3-1. I think just because of the execution, I think people forget how good he is with X's and O's. Also, not just the execution, it's just that he's never been one to micromanage an offense or a game. So that makes him look really bad when things aren't going Notre Dame's way. And if the personnel isn't doing it. I mean, we've seen, this is nothing against Prentice Hub or Cormac or anybody, but we've seen how Notre Dame teams have run with Bray's system, with the faster pace, hands-off approach he has. We've seen how that's happened with Jaron Grant, Demetrius Jackson, Matt Farrell running the point guard, and then super talented guys like VJ Beecham and Bonzi on the wing. And if he has a complete team, this system is awesome. I mean, it's interesting to see how people react to him not being super hands-on, and I can see that nowadays with the way this program's heading. But I think people need to realize that he isn't micromanaging the offense. Like Prentice Hub turning the ball over a couple times is not Mike Brey's fault. Could he have developed him more? Could the staff have developed him more? Obviously, yeah. I think the guard development has not been what we've hoped for in the past couple of years, but I don't necessarily think that's all on Brey either. So that's kind of my thoughts on Brey. I've talked with a lot of people about that, so I think a lot of you know my stance on that, but that's what I have. I guess we'll move into the now more. I guess we know ACC tournament's happening. We don't know much more than that. But for now, the seeding, Notre Dame's locked into a 12 seed basically. I may have slipped up on the math, not a huge math guy, but I looked. I don't think Pitt could drop to 12 based on win percentage and stuff. I calculated it. If Pitt loses to Clemson tomorrow and Notre Dame wins, I think Pitt would still be in the 11 seed. But Notre Dame's in the 12 seed. Where it gets a little interesting, though, I'm going to post this probably Friday late afternoon. So tonight, watch Wake Forest and Miami. Wake Forest versus GT, Miami versus BC. If you want to kind of keep in touch with their seeding, also JR and Blake play playoff games tonight. So that's something to watch for also if you want to watch a game after this. But Wake and Miami, currently the 12 and 13 seed, or 13 and 14 seed. BC's the 15 seed. I think it's possible that I did some rough math. I think if Wake Forest wins tonight, they have the 13th seed locked up. And if Wake Forest loses and Miami wins, they got it. And if Wake Forest loses and Boston College wins, I think they get the 13th seed. Not 100% sure in that scenario, but that's what I have for ACC tournament seeding. I think it's more likely they play Wake or Miami. Miami versus Boston College is just basically a game of who wants to play more, because I don't think either of those teams are really locked in at this point. I would almost think Boston College wins that game just because of the energy they've gotten in the last week or so from the Notre Dame win. Scott Spinelli, who Bray's been really high on lately, giving him a lot of praise. But those are games to watch tonight. Watch for Wake. If Wake wins, which I doubt, then they're in. But if they lose, it could get pretty interesting to see who Notre Dame plays. If Notre Dame is, in fact, in that 12-13 seed game, then was it? Oh, I also think Notre Dame's locked into 12. I don't think they can drop to 13. Based on some of the math I did, it doesn't seem like they can drop. And if they do, in fact, play in that game, they're going to be playing on Tuesday at 2 p.m. Awesome timing, but it's Tuesday of the ACC tournament. They're just concerned with getting those games played. They're not high rating games anyway, so I'm not too mad about it. Hopefully I can pull off a way to watch that game in school, but that's enough for me. Guess I'm going to go into tomorrow's game, Florida State, best team in the ACC. We know this. I don't think anybody watching this is expecting Notre Dame to win this game. Florida State just has them outmatched in so many areas. They have the big men of NC State and Raekwon Gray. They always have big guys down low. And Leonard Hamilton nowadays always has really athletic guys on the wing who can go get their own shot. Scotty Barnes does a really great job running their offense. It's like a point forward, but he plays like a true point guard to me. He's like Ben Simmons with a little bit better of a jump shot and a bit worse defensively. But if you watch him, you'll kind of be reminded about Ben Simmons. They have great big men like Balsa, Raekwon Gray, MJ Walker is great on the perimeter. I think he's a guy Notre Dame is going to have a lot of trouble with. And just Florida State in general, I think they're a Final Four sleeper team. I don't know if a whole lot of people agree. Maybe it's the ACC bias, but I've watched a bit of Florida State this year, and they're a phenomenal team, top to bottom. Leonard Hamilton, I think Leonard Hamilton is probably the best coach in the ACC, X's and O's wise, and just team building. I know Coach K and Roy are better recruiters, and Bennett's a really good defensive coach. But the way Leonard Hamilton's been able to adapt and have a team like this, and he's even gotten a lot better on the recruiting side of things too. I think it's really impressive. And Florida State, just a long athletic team, similar to the team we saw last year, just a little bit better point guard play from Scotty Barnes. And I think they're a little bit worse defensively than they were last year. I don't know if they can necessarily pressure you as well as they could last year. Last year, Prentice Hub had a huge game against them, but Notre Dame blew a lead. And the other one, still a BS call on Rex. Should have won that first game. I really wish they would have got one of those just to shut up everybody about the ranked streak. But it's going to be great when it is over. So I guess I'll go into keys, make Scotty Barnes uncomfortable. I don't know that Notre Dame has anybody who could do this. Maybe Nick Jogo, but just because he's so tall. But he's a freshman after all. He's playing point guard. You can, I guess, make him a little bit uncomfortable, but he's really poised to me. So that's what I have. 2, kind of the same thing I had against NC State. Control the boards. They're really big down low with Gray and Cope. I don't even know how to say this dude's last name. Balsa Cope something. I've never learned how to say his last name. I've watched him multiple times this year. So that's my bad. But they're going to have to control him on the boards. One of the more physical backcourts front courts in the ACC, just like NC State. So they're going to have a really tough time with that. And the guard play on Florida State is better than NC State. So that's something to watch for. And then 3, just come out with intensity. It's senior day. Juwan Durham and Nick Jogo, last game at Purcell Pavilion. Unless something changes, they're not coming back. We'll probably do a video in a week or two, probably like right before March Madness starts, about the loss of both of them. But they do have good replacements coming in. Going to be sad to see him go, but this is a normal senior day for Brey. I think what we need to watch for more in this game, rather than on the court, so I think we need to watch Brey in the post game. This is not a normal senior day, like I said, for Brey. He doesn't have as many guys. Last year he had Ricks, TJ, and Mooney, and they were really that was maybe his favorite class, I feel like, that he's had in a while. And he wasn't super emotional after that game. If he seems really out of it Saturday afternoon at Purcell, that could be his last game there. So I think we need to really watch Brey in that post game to see kind of what his reaction is to this game. If he wins, I guess that could be offset a little bit, but are they really going to win? I don't know. I think we need to really watch that, see his body language. I'm not as good at analyzing pressers as some of these guys, but I just didn't see that whole he knows it's coming thing. So hopefully we can kind of know he's coming back next year, or we can get something one way or the other. But that's what I have for kind of what to watch for there. I think we need to watch that more than anything in the actual game. I don't know how many of you are actually watching the game at this point. I think it's gone way down as the season's progressed. But leading scorer, just going to go Hub. I don't really love any matchup in this game. Prentice Hub had a great game against Florida State last year, so I think it's definitely possible we see something from him this year. And the score prediction, I'm going to go Florida State by 10 to 15. I mean, this team just – I don't want to say they're out of it, or I don't want to say they've given up, because, I mean, they've shown flashes in the last couple of games, but, man, they're as close to checked out as you can be. I really hope that they bring some juice, some energy with the fans, and hopefully they can back up Brey like his former players have done, just do it on the court. But I don't see it. Honestly, I hope to see it. I think this group they have the guys to bounce back mentally. It's just this could be a great end of the season, but Florida State, like I said, sleeper Final Four team, and yeah, that's kind of all we need to say about them. I could put them in the Final Four depending on who's in their bracket. I'll probably put the bracket on Twitter or something, and then you guys will go